There is a lot in store for us today. We'll be covering the third Singularity, Okeanos, as well as covering some of the awesome stuff revealed from the Babylonia anime's Prologue episode. You don't want to miss out. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. This is part 4 of my Lore of Fate Grand Order, where we'll be covering all there is to know about the game's third Singularity. I'm not just summarizing events for those who skipped the cutscenes. I'll cover the events, sure, but I'll be diving into the material deeper than that, including overviews of servants and other unique mechanics that get introduced. Before we get too deep into that, we absolutely have to reflect on the glory that is the Babylonia anime. Episode 0 came out, and it gives us everything that the OVA First Order should have. We finally get to see in action a lot of things that were only briefly mentioned in passing before. So please indulge me as I highlight a few. First, we get to see much more of Mashu's past, which is wonderful. We already know she's a demi-servant who inherits the Saint Graph of Galahad, but here we get to witness how difficult it was to reach that point. Chaldea, for the greater good of mankind, did some pretty questionable shit. The designer babies were among these malpractices. Rather than summoning their own servants, Chaldea thought it would be a better idea to take genetically manipulated children and use them as vessels for heroic spirits. Mashu was their biggest success, but even then she wasn't a flawless victory. It appears waking up Galahad inside Mashu's body is as dangerous as activating Ava Unit 0. Hell, I'd be pretty startled if I woke up all of a sudden in a chick's body. I probably wouldn't have gone postal though. At this point, it seems Galahad's not all too keen about helping save humanity, and it's only because Mashu regains control of her body that Chaldea isn't leveled to the ground. It'll be a while until Mashu and her bond with Ritsuka seem to persuade Galahad to lend her his servant abilities. The dynamic between Dr. Roman and Marisbury is fleshed out in greater detail too. Obviously, Marisbury Animosphere's the guy who founded Chaldea. He participated in a Holy Grail war, won, and decided to use his wish not to achieve true magic, but to get a crap ton of money. What can I say? The guy needed mats. I'm sure you understand. I pictured him as an older guy, but making people pretty is just how fate do. His servant was, of course, King Solomon. In life, he was a humble dude who supposedly told God he desired knowledge over wealth, and in exchange got 10 rings, which let him summon angels and demons. Quite the nifty magecraft. Seems he got too playful on the demon side, but we'll come back to that. Point is, he was recognized by God, and his people worshipped him as such. As a result, he never really got to live as a normal guy. Thus, when he became the winning servant of a Holy Grail war, he made a wish to become human. The Grail granted his wish, and he became a normal person. Well, for the most part anyway. He was reborn as Romani Archiman, a mortal man without the memories of being Solomon. It's never that simple though. When he took form, he had a vivid premonition of humanity's demise. Wanting to make a difference in the world, he busted his ass, studying sorcery and medicine. The anime lets us see just how diligent he was, traveling the world and witnessing humanity's decline. It really brings out his humanity. He's a fine lad. Eventually, he figures his best use is as a doctor for Chaldea. He meets up with his old pal Marisbury and gets the job. That's when he winds up seeing Galahad's activation experiment and becomes interested in Mashu's condition. Long story short, she's akin to a homunculus and is guaranteed to die at the age of 18. Not only that, she's being used as Chaldea's weapon and treated less like a human being. As someone who values humanity, Romani insists on being her primary caretaker. While Chaldea's staff trains her to be neutral and diligent, with the douchebag Lev teaching her magecraft, Romani takes his time with Mashu to expose her to the value of life. He brings her books, movies, offers his life philosophies, and even gives her the last name Urielite. When we first meet Roman in the game, he's kind of an airhead, but I feel we really needed to see his compassion. It'll play out much better during Solomon's Temple of Time. By spending time with Romani, Mashu develops her own will and a wish to see the sky. Marisbury's death is a bit clearer too. Some unknown ass sneaks into his office and holds him at gunpoint. He whips out his own piece before it cuts to black and we hear a gunshot. Unlike Star Wars, we never get to see precisely who shot first, just that he kicks the bucket and Olga takes over. It's during this time that Roman gets Mashu out of her isolation chamber and around the facility as a staff member, allowing our beloved Kohai to find us sleeping in the hallway. This is roughly where the mobile game and OVA First Order start off, and the rest is history. And what a history it is. Turns out, when Solomon was screwing around with demons, he didn't exactly see eye to eye with them. After his death, the demon god pillars combined to form a hive mind, Getia, choosing to incinerate humanity as fuel to reach the origin of life and fix humankind's inherent flaws. The only way to stop this is to undo the singularities planted throughout history by grabbing up them grails. Singularity F took place in a jacked-up version of the Fuyuki Holy Grail Wars, where Mashu used her noble phantasm to impress Artoria Altar. The first Singularity was Orion, where we helped Jeanne d'Arc defeat her altar form, who'd been causing hell with dragons. The second Singularity was Septim, where everybody loved Nero, minus Boudica, and Lev got his comeuppance by getting sliced in two by Altera. Now we're at the third Singularity, Okeanos. Well, before Ritsuka even gets there, we've got some backstory with Francis Drake. That's right, the real Francis Drake, not a servant. She's a ship captain and pirate, famed for successfully circumnavigating the globe. Her ambitious voyages helped the rise of the British Empire, fighting against the Spanish Armada and earning the name El Drake. This singularity occurs during her life, but before the circumnavigation, when she and her crew on board the Golden Hind are on another voyage and discover Atlantis. Drake, being the badass she is, takes on the god Poseidon and wins, claiming a holy grail. It's kinda confusing, but this is not the same kind of grail that Getia is injecting into each singularity. It's a genuine holy grail, the kind King Arthur was searching for in her time. Drake keeps it, enhancing her body so it's as strong as that of a servant. Nifty. Then a storm comes, sweeping her and her crew into the endless ocean of Okeanos. Drake doesn't seem to mind, taking this opportunity to plunder the new vast world before her. Of course, she's not alone. On the open seas, she encounters none other than Edward Teach, more famously known as the pirate Blackbeard. In life, he sailed on the Queen Anne's Revenge, feared by even his own crew as a devil. In that regard, he is a fitting rival for Drake. That said, the version we see here is his servant form, summoned after his death. As a heroic spirit, Blackbeard has found himself immersed in an otaku lifestyle, shamelessly fawning over any women that catch his eye. Furthermore, he is the one in possession of Solomon's Grail. In addition to his own pirate crew, he is accompanied by 4 other servants. First are Anne Bonny and Mary Reed, 2 women who found themselves serving under the infamous pirate, John Rackham, on board the Calico Jack. Throughout their pirate career, they form a close bond of camaraderie, ultimately being the bravest members of the crew. In their final battle at Jamaica, they are the only 2 choosing to fight to the end, while their captain and crew hide in the ship's hold. The 2 women proved themselves stronger than their own captain. Also sailing with Blackbeard is Eric Bloodaxe, a king of Norway who claimed the throne through brutally slaughtering his brothers with the help of a witch, Gunhild. He is a warrior acknowledged by the god Odin, and as a berserker, he is able to reinforce Blackbeard's ship. Lastly, there's Hector. Yep, the guy who was the strongest hero of Troy during the Trojan War. When his brother Paris sparked the start of the war, Hector rallied the Trojan army against their stronger Achaean foes, until his defeat by the hero Achilles. It is said that Hector's death was the turning point for Troy's eventual loss. While Hector appears to be working for Blackbeard, he is actually on the side of Jason of the Argonauts, but we'll come back to him a bit later. It is at this point, when Drake and Blackbeard are feuding against each other, that Ritsuka and Mashu are ray-shifted to the Singularity. They find themselves aboard one of Drake's ships, surrounded by hostile pirates. Mashu beats them up and earns their loyalty, commanding them to find the nearest land. They are taken to the island Drake uses as her hideout. There, Ritsuka and Mashu find Francis Drake enjoying booze from an endless supply pouring forth from her holy grail. Drake, in her drunken stupor, challenges them to a fight and finds herself defeated. Accepting her loss fair and square, Drake agrees to join Ritsuka in their campaign. She gives up the grail, and Mashu is hopeful that it's the grail they're looking for. Nothing happens though, indicating that there's another grail out there, which we know is with Blackbeard at the moment. On the open seas, we fight other pirates and their ships, taking on the concept of average pirates, similar to ghosts. On a nearby island, we find a stone tablet mentioning the Bloodaxe King. We find Norway Vikings and fight them off. Eric Bloodaxe is their leader. We kick his Zerker butt and confirm his disappearance. Later, we raid a Viking ship for a map and set sail to a nearby island in search of a ley line to summon more servants. When we try to leave the island, however, we see that the Golden Hind won't move because it's trapped in a bounded field. Thus, we go searching for the one who made the barrier. Turns out that Blackbeard has a new goal, capturing the goddess Uriel. We already met Stheno in the last Singularity, and now it's her sister who's in trouble. In life, she and her sisters were goddesses born from wishing for idols. The youngest, Medusa, had a flaw causing her to age. In jealousy of the sisters, the goddess Athena cursed Medusa to turn into the Gorgon beast and banished her to the Shapeless Isle. Stheno and Uriel join Medusa on the island and are protected by their big sister against pursuing men. In time, however, Medusa fully transforms, turning on her sisters and devouring them. Like Stheno, Uriel is able to manifest as a servant because, while divine, she is overall a very weak goddess. In the Singularity, she tries to escape Blackbeard's pursuit with the help of Asterios, another figure of Greek myth. The story goes, King Minos made a promise to Poseidon to sacrifice a bull to him. When it came time, however, Minos refused to sacrifice his most valuable divine bull, instead choosing a different one. Pissed, Poseidon curses Minos' wife, making her lust for bulls. She gets freaky with a beastie, giving birth to Asterios, a man with the head of an ox. The child is rejected, treated not like a man, but a monster called Minotauros, trapped within a labyrinth created by the architect Daedalus. Hoping to slay the Minotaur, the Athenian hero Theseus takes to the labyrinth using the guidance of the maiden Ariadne, only to discover that his prey is but a child. Theseus notices that Asterios never wanted to be a monster, and so he slays the beast in an effort to save him. As a heroic spirit, he gets his chance at redemption. While he's a berserker, he winds up helping Uriel. This just so happens to be the island we're stuck on. Tsaritska's party searches the labyrinth and encounters Asterios in battle. Uriel breaks up the fight, noting how Asterios is nearly dead. After communicating, it becomes clear that the bounded field was supposed to keep people from entering the island, but instead accidentally trapped us. Noticing we're not associated with Blackbeard, Uriel agrees to have Asterios drop the bounded field and come with us if it means saving him. Just as we leave the island, Blackbeard attacks. To our surprise, Eric Bloodaxe is back, having been summoned by Blackbeard's Grail. We defeat Eric once again, but are overwhelmed by Anne, Mary, and Hector. We make an escape, succeeding because Asterios incurs a severe wound. They punched a hole in the ship through cannon fire. To repair the Golden Hind, we decide to reinforce its hull with wyvern materials. Venturing into the forest to gather mats, we discover Orion and Artemis. Artemis happens to be the Greek goddess of the hunt. In her time, she helped raise the hero Atalante, and even taught the centaur hero Chiron. But she's a powerful goddess. How'd she manifest as a servant? Well, technically she didn't. Rather, she is hiding within the Saint Graph of Orion, the famed hunter and mortal son of Poseidon. In life, he hunted alongside Artemis, and though he was a playboy, he resisted her obsessive affections. Regardless, rumors of their supposed romance spread to the god Apollo, who disapproved of their relationship. One day, he tricked Artemis into shooting at someone swimming, who just so happened to be Orion. Artemis pleaded to bring her love back to life, but was denied, with Orion instead ascended to the stars as a celestial body. When Orion was to be summoned as a heroic spirit, Artemis snuck in, achieving a summoning that would otherwise be impossible. As a side effect, Orion's presence in his own Saint Graph is reduced, manifesting him as a small bear mascot. Even so, he remains an unfaithful playboy, and she continues to adore him, punishing him for his wandering interest in other women. Ritska accidentally steps on Orion, who at first acts like a plush toy. When Artemis learns that Ritska is a member of Chaldea, she joins the team in order to preserve the human order. Yay! We plan another assault on Blackbeard. Since Orion can walk on water as Poseidon's kiddo, Artemis inherits that talent and volunteers to distract them while the Golden Hind gets close. Uriel fires arrows upon Blackbeard's crew, charming the men into turning to her side. Amidst the confusion, Orion and Artemis ignite a bomb on Blackbeard's ship, and in a panic, Blackbeard tries to use it as an excuse to get Anne and Mary to strip down. Regardless, Ritsuka's team rams the Queen Anne's Revenge and boards it. We defeat Anne and Mary, but are surprised when Hector takes his chance to betray and kill Blackbeard. He steals Blackbeard's grail and kidnaps Uriel, fleeing to his true allies on board Jason's ship, the Argo, along with Medea Lily. Yep, Jason and the Argonauts. Jason was another Greek hero, dare I say, who was heir to the throne of Iolcus. He got screwed out of his inheritance when King Peleus usurped the throne. To get in Peleus's good graces, Jason and his crew on board the Argo set sail to the country of Colchis to retrieve their treasure, the Golden Fleece. The king of Colchis, Aeetes, refused to hand over the fleece, so Jason resorted to stealing it. The goddess Aphrodite supported Jason and used her power to control the mind of the king's daughter, Medea. She was manipulated into unconditionally loving Jason, betraying her father in the process. Medea was a talented mage even in her youth, and her abilities helped Jason escape pursuit with the fleece in hand. Medea's forced love urges her to commit atrocious murders for Jason's benefit, slicing her own brother to pieces and assassinating Jason's political rivals. You'd think Jason would be grateful, but no. He just gets disgusted by her actions that he encouraged her to perform and abandons her for another woman. Medea, dragged from her home and abandoned, cannot forgive Jason's infidelity and winds up crushing him beneath his own ship. Noise. Now, you'd think Medea would never want to team up with Jason in the afterlife, but the assumption is that this Medea is in her youth, before she committed so many murders on Jason's behalf. At least, that's what Jason thinks. In truth, Medea remembers everything from her previous life, and is working in cahoots with Getia, who has disguised himself as Solomon. From the beginning of this ordeal, Getia confronted Medea and Hector, giving them the Singularity's grail, entrusting it to be found by some fool who'd cause havoc. Perfect for the part, they let Blackbeard find it. In addition, Getia had a greater plan involving the Ark of the Covenant. In myth, the Ark is said to contain the 10 Commandments, and opening it is akin to unleashing Pandora's box, destroying anyone who touches it. Turns out, if one were to sacrifice a god to the Ark, it would count as sacrificing the world, bringing about destruction through the Singularity. Thus, Medea Lily tricks Jason into believing that if he can procure Uriel and sacrifice her to the Ark, it will grant him ultimate power. The dumbass believes her and naively goes about bringing an end to the world. Oof. We track Hector through an intense storm and confront the Argo and face up against Jason's biggest asset, Heracles. Of course, Heracles was the child of Zeus, an immortal woman. Problem is, Zeus was married to the goddess Hera, who wasn't too happy about being cheated on. She curses Heracles, sending him into fits of rage, one of which causes him to murder his wife and children. To redeem himself, Heracles is assigned by the gods as the servant of Eurystheus, forced to complete 12 labors. He completes these tasks, earning much glory. After Heracles is poisoned and lights his own body ablaze, he is honored in Olympus for his deeds as a god. That said, the servant version of Heracles is but a demigod, and his 12 labors manifest as strong defense, akin to 12 lives. This makes him extremely overpowered, such that we are forced to flee after rescuing Uriel. Asterios sacrifices himself so we can survive, confessing his love for Uriel in a moment of clarity from his madness. Aww. For now, it's a race to see who can reach the Ark first. Ritsuka's party checks various islands, searching for traces of mana, until receiving a letter fired from an arrow, shot by Atalante. Atalante was yet another Greek hero, abandoned at birth by her father, and raised as a huntress by Artemis. She eventually joined Jason as one of the Argonauts, gaining fame as a warrior. Her father decided to invite her back, exclusively for the purpose of marrying her off as a political asset. She was clever though, agreeing only under the condition that her suitors must beat her in a foot race, a feat which no one could do in a fair competition. Aphrodite, the same goddess who screwed Medea over, intervened during Atalante's race with Hippomenes, gifting him irresistible golden apples to scatter across the track. This caused Atalante to lose, being forced to marry her suitor. Her biggest goal as a servant is to save all the children of the world. After reading her letter, we go to meet her in the forest, where we also encounter David. In life, he was a shepherd and harpist who was told he'd been given a special role from God. safeguarding the Ark of the Covenant. He played his harp for Saul, the king of Israel, exorcising him of an evil spirit. At the time, Israel's enemies in the Philistines were supported by a giant named Goliath, who demanded someone from Israel's army fight with him in a one-on-one duel. While none of the soldiers would comply, David accepted. Like a boss, he came to the battle without a sword of his own. He knocked Goliath out with a rock, shot from a slingshot, and decapitated him with his own sword. After Saul's death, David ascended the throne. Despite having an otherwise righteous rule, David murdered his own vassal to covet his wife, and spent the rest of his years enduring God's punishment. This woman gave birth to his son, who just so happened to be Solomon. Small world, yeah? Anyway, David was the first servant to be summoned into the Singularity. More importantly, his noble phantasm actually is the Ark of the Covenant. As such, he knows how dangerous it is, and he let Atalante know the truth. Thus, even though Atalante was a former Argonaut, she would rather assist Ritska in protecting the Era from the idiotic Jason. With 2 more allies, we plan a way to eliminate Heracles. If we can lure him into touching the Ark, it will kill him instantly. Thus, we bait him with Uriel, leading him underground where his fate is sealed. Without Heracles' protection, we can now fight Jason directly to retrieve the Grail. Jason himself is weak, so instead we tear through soldiers summoned by Jason's Grail, and also defeat Hector. Pushed to the edge, Jason no longer has value to Medea. She reveals that she's been manipulating the moron to bring about the Era's destruction. She then snags the Grail from Jason and uses it to transform him into the vessel for the demon god pillar Fornius. We defeat Medea in the pillar, after which Medea reveals she's been following Solomon's orders. Of course, this Solomon is just Getia, stealing his saint graph. Ritska and the others don't know this yet, so they ask David, Solomon's father, whether he's the kind of guy who'd be messing around with demon gods. David confirms that, yeah, Solomon rolled that way, but was never the type of person who'd try to end humanity. Either way, Getia's Grail is recovered, causing the Singularity to vanish. We give a heartfelt farewell to Francis Drake. She encourages Mashu to pursue her dreams, even if she doesn't yet know what they are. Aw, what a nice pirate. Ritska and Mashu are ray-shifted back to Chaldea. In Drake's honor, Ritska invites Mashu to sail the world together, assuming they're able to save humanity. Naturally, Mashu is intimidated by the idea of fighting more demon gods, but she chooses to believe in her master and their growing strength. There you have it. 3rd Singularity down. Compared to Septum, this was a much more epic journey for sure, but you'll have to look forward to an even more exciting lore when I cover London. Look forward to it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.